It's always a fun challenge here as we go live or try to go live every single Tuesday inside the groups and inside the Facebooks and the LinkedIn's and all that. Hopefully, this is all working because yours truly put this broadcast in at 2024. So it was like, I'm like, I can't go live. What's happening here? I had to change it. And hopefully, we are live broadcasting into the places that we do want to go. So, hi, welcome to the show. We are at Marketing Made Easy. My name is Joey Ragona. Joey Screw Up Ragona for another Tuesday night. Welcome to the show. My friend Scott is in the house as well, or in the house, or in the lobby, or whatever it is. Where are you today?
I'm in the lobby today. The upstairs was just not cooperating, so I went down into the lobby where I knew I would get connectivity. I think we sometimes just take for advantage, like take for granted. It's like, oh, everything should work perfect all the time. The expectation of this whole interweb thingy of I clicked the button, it didn't do exactly what I needed at that second. And then it's like, really, come on. And then you call them up and say, hey, my internet doesn't work. How come? Like there's some invisible there that can tell you why this whole thing. So anyway, yeah, here I am. And again, just Tuesday. And I'm like, wow, benefit breadcrumbs, prefluence, education, learning. I was on with a couple of clients today and I was talking about what would happen if you got together every week and just talked about what you love talking about with somebody that you love doing it with. What do you think would happen just from a standpoint of that creative genius? It's not that we come here and just bring this to the tribe and the tribe participates. It's the whole collective genius thing that floats. And again, you say something and I'm like, huh, I write it down. I say something, you write it down, and then you're like, wait a second, that's a whole other thing. And it's for us, it kind of like goes to Julie Cameron's The Artist Way morning page. For us, it's Tuesday pages. Every single Tuesday for 161 weeks, the brain knows, okay, we're talking about marketing. And if you're watching live, please give us a hashtag live so that the ISPs, ESPs, and the social media gods say, okay, you're doing a good job. If you're on the replay, hashtag replay. I know everybody gets responded to, whether you comment or ask a question. And of course, if you haven't joined the club, the Heart Centered Marketing Club, and become part of an amazing tribe, I'm sure Joey will post the link for you. Come to a place where you get fully supported and learn all the cool stuff that Joey's got going on in that brain of his. And you might as well take advantage of it because one day they're going to take them back and say enough.
Man, you got that intro down pat, man. It's almost like you rehearsed it, but like, hey, we've been doing this for like 3 years, and it's kind of,
Yeah.
again, consistency is so important. Hey, what's up? I don't know who this is, but thank you for being here. Um, and this has got to be Collie. Thank you for the soul hugs. Thank you for being here live. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Today, I want to jump right into this, Scott, because last time, through no fault of our own, we just like to go off on, all kinds of different topics. But I want to revisit or retry to do the imposter syndrome today. So, like I said last week, we'll do it next week, and that's what I've got up in front of me. I took a whole bunch of notes that I'm creating like a blog post or an epic blog post, one of the major ones with a lot of stuff because um, imposter syndrome is one of the biggest topics that come up in my coaching, and I love talking about it too. So I'll go through just a couple things here, but the first thing is, Scott, like, have you, first of all, have you experienced imposter syndrome?
Me, never. And that would be a huge lie to begin with. I don't think any entrepreneur can go through what we go through and not experience imposter syndrome, especially when we do what we do and we get in front of people and we get in front of strangers and we get in front of the world and we put ourselves out there and we share knowledge and insight and wisdom. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. And with that, being in our zone of genius and saying, hey, listen to me, I know what I'm talking about. Then there's the part of us that says, really? Who are you to tell anyone that you know anything or that you know what you're talking about. And so, yeah, over the years, it doesn't really exist much anymore. Occasionally, when I'm way out there in my zone of genius and I'm like got thing firing and I'm creating stuff and I'm like, who possibly ever believe this or do this? Because sometimes we get crazy stuff going on. And that's when the imposter syndrome to me jumps in and says, who are you to think that anybody would want that or do that or think about that? Yeah, I would not be human. I believe it's part of the human condition. And more importantly, the entrepreneur, and especially the online entrepreneur, who, as you know, we kind of exist in a vacuum. We've got our online buddies and friends. It's not a lot of offline online buddies where you go hang out at the club and chat about the online world with your neighbors or your wife's friends and that. That's just not. That's a whole separate world. And I believe it's a huge thing. And every single person that I coach, consult with, same thing, Joey. It exists.
Yeah, and if you do have imposter syndrome, let us know in the chat if you do or not, or if you're experiencing it now, or what does it mean to you? I go through imposter syndrome myself more often than I'd like to admit, and it's like you said, it's very scary. And actually, just last week, I think it was last week, I went through it again, and it happens to me more on not as much as should I be teaching this topic because, as you know, I've been in the same lane for the last 3+ years now. So to me, I'm pretty confident in that area. Not that I can't learn it, but where I really feel imposter syndrome is when I'm up leveling, when I'm growing, when I'm beside people who are doing what I want to do. Should I be in this room or not? Should I be talking to this person? Last week I was talking to such an epic person that I'm bringing into, and I don't want to spoil it because I won't mention any names right on this episode, but you'll probably hear about this coming up. But anyway, speaking to the person, and we had a really amazing conversation, and then they asked me about the podcast thingy, and like me, like on your thing. I'm like, okay, and I accepted, but I left that conversation totally terrified, and also, why me? Like, And so, anyway, this will all come out. I don't want to spoil it because I haven't told any of my academy members or anybody else yet. So I just want to keep it a surprise to them first. But anyway, I experienced it, and it was like it was just up leveling. It's like, why should I be on this thing? Should I be talking about this? Like, why? You know. And when it comes, you'll know what I'm talking about when it's released. Anyway, so yeah, I'd love to hear from the audience too, like how you experience imposter syndrome. But one thing that every time I do experience it, I always go back to the one thing that stood out from Seth Godin, which is that if you do have imposter syndrome, it's a sign that you are healthy and doing very important work. And I'll never forget that. It's actually in my notes. And every single time I experience it, or even talk to somebody about it, I say, "Good. I'm glad you have imposter syndrome."
It's healthy, Joey. It really is. I believe that it's part of the whole ego because it's the ego fighting with the rest of ourselves, and it's the stories that we've told ourselves or that have been told to us over the years that we've come to believe. And that's where I know you as a coach do such an amazing job is showing people where they have their superpowers and their zone of genius. And I believe that the more you identify your superpowers and the more you get comfortable in your zone of genius, and more importantly, the more you stay in your lane and focused, I believe that imposter syndrome gets less and less as you become more expert in your lane, in your field, and go deeper and deeper. Showing up all the time and doing the same thing over and over again, and that you're getting the same results. It's not the opposite of the insanity. This is showing up. And I believe the more you do that, the more confident you become in it. And therefore, imposter syndrome doesn't exist as much. But I agree with what you said. as you begin to push the bounds and as you begin to move out and more opportunities, congratulations for you that you're out there, and then something that's unknown, that's bigger, and you're like, really? Me? Am I worthy of this? And it
Yeah.
goes to the whole, the whole emotional piece behind this is the worthiness and the shame and the appreciation and all of that that is difficult for a lot of humans to figure out and accept and embrace, especially when we're going live and we're going on in groups and we're doing these programs and we're helping people. There is a part that's always going to say, really? You? Why? Go.
There's I love that, and thank you for the props. Uh, that's the worthiness was a big one. I didn't even recognize it or identify with it until you said it, which is yeah, I totally felt that. Am I worthy to be on this thing with all these other people? And and I guess a couple of months from now or maybe a year from now, I'm like, yeah, of course I should have been on that thing, whatever. But I think that imposter syndrome. Here's a couple of things that I read from I think I have the notes here. I think it's from let me just double check because I do have yeah, it's from Think Again. This is from Think Again. Adam I forget the guy's name, but he says that by being feeling the imposter syndrome, there's three areas that we can grow from it. One is that it motivates us to become to work harder because if you think you're an imposter that you're not good enough, then and you're truly are passionate about the thing you're doing, then it motivates you to work harder to prove to the world that you're good enough. That's a huge benefit to having imposter syndrome. Is okay, I'm going to step into this and I'm just going to work harder than anybody else. That's number one. Number two, or do you want to talk about them individually, or do you want me to name the three first?
Well, why don't you name the three and then we'll jump back at them?
Number two is that imposter syndrome motivates us to work smarter. And I love this one because when I read this, I'm like, yep, that's what Atlas was all about. It was, okay, everybody's teaching group, everybody's teach how to do a group program, everybody teaching organic marketing and all these other things. How can I do this differently? It made me think smarter, it made me think out of the box. And here's the reason why. Not because I'm smarter than anybody else, it's because I had nothing to lose. That was why. So it makes you think smarter than anybody else by thinking everybody's doing it this way, or I'm not going to compete with that. So let me do something different. I got nothing to lose anyway because I'm not there anyway. I'm not doing this, right? And so because of that, I believe that's one of the reasons why, for me, Atlas shifted the market or shifted the movement of what it is and became what it is today. Third, imposter syndrome, and I love this one too. And please, if you're listening to this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, if you identify with any of these three or even more of these, or any more that we're not talking about yet. Number three is that it can make us better learners. And I love this because you know me, that's part of my DNA. I'm just a learner and an absorber. So because I feel I don't know, I'll use words like inadequate or I'm not good enough or whatever. I'm going to do my hardest to learn even more to up level to where I believe that I'm worthy enough. So that's the general thing, and now we can bounce into all of those ideas. Which one do you want to talk about? 1 second before we do this, because we have a comment here from the amazing tribe. You're right. It is the ego, like Wayne Dyer said. The ego wants to protect us by far, but it really wants us in pain and dead because of the in depth guilt we all have. Just learn how to break through it because it is all fear that does not exist at all but in our minds. I don't know who that is, but amazing.
I don't either because I'm not seeing that Facebook feed. So it's coming from the second Facebook as opposed to YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Boozclot and all the rest of the multiverse where we're broadcasting.
All right. Thank you for the comment, by the way, whoever that was.
Whoever just please let
Ah,
us
okay.
know.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay, now
Oh, hi,
we
Jeffrey. That's odd because last week Jeffrey came up fine on it, but appreciate that. Yeah. as far as the ego goes, um, the ego is scared because, but when you're in the zone of genius, there is no need for the ego because you don't need approval, and that's where there's infinite possibilities, and it's a scary place to be because I believe the ego believes that we're flawed, the false belief that we're flawed in some way. And who are we to be doing this? And that if we succeed, there's a lot of things that we're disloyal to, or we're leaving behind people or things from our past. And we don't want to do that because it's comfortable where we are rather than it's kind of like the hero's journey, setting out on our own and leaving home and getting on the big adventure. And for a lot of people, they think they become a burden in the world, believe it or not,
Hmm.
in this whole imposter syndrome. And a lot of this I'm pulling from The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. That to me, the whole zone of genius piece, that's where a lot of what I'm talking about tonight came from. I pulled that out this afternoon. For the first time in 3 years, I actually prepared. Well, that's not true. There were a couple of other calls that I prepared for, but this one is, and the other one was dimming the bright light of our brilliance so we won't outshine anyone, both present and past. That's a big one. Imposter syndrome is, well, what if I become too big, and what if I am too big for my britches? And a lot of that, your head's getting too big, and so a lot of that comes into play. So I'm going
Hmm.
to go to,
I've never looked at it from that point of view. That's interesting. Okay, cool.
yeah, just again some different pieces. But let's go back to number one, that imposter syndrome motivates us to work harder. And I like that one because it does. It sets up within us, if we don't think we're good enough, then if I do more, if I'm more productive and I get more accomplished and have more success, then I'll prove to myself, which is really what it's about, which then calms down the imposter somewhat.
Yeah, I think it's a proof for everything. It depends on how passionate you are. It's more of proving to the world that you're good enough to stand on the stage or whatever it is beyond the podcast. That blah blah blah. And so you're working harder, and you're committed. Your head is down. You're focused. That's all you're doing, and proving to everyone else who you think is maybe doubting you, but it's also your doubting Dan that sits up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's more of that dude that you're hearing, but you're thinking it's the world as well. Well, everybody else must agree as well with my inner voice, my doubting Dan. By the way, if you've never heard that and you're just listening to this broadcast and this guy's pointing to his shoulder, is he seeing something that I don't see there? What did I
We
just tune into here?
we Photoshop that in afterward.
Yeah, it's all post production.
This
So
is how
yeah,
they do it live, and then we add in all the effects afterward.
that's hilarious, man.
But yeah,
Hey, hey,
you're
Meadow.
doubting.
Good to see you, Meadow. What were you
Hello,
saying?
Meadow. You were talking about your doubting Dan. Give us a little insight into that, real quick, if you would, about your doubting
Yeah,
Dan.
doubting Dan is the name that I gave my inner voice, my inner voice that says you can't do it, you're not good enough, whatever it is, whatever doubts that your inner voice has, and I visualize this grotesque troll type of dude sitting on my shoulder, and he's ugly, but he's got a voice, and he's got a little volume knob on his stomach that I could turn down because we really can't stop the voice. The voice can only get lower, and you can barely hear it sometimes, which is amazing. But a lot of times it's loud. It's over, above, and everything else, and you're like, man. So I just reach over and I literally just turn down the volume, and it sounds crazy. But when the voice is starting to get into my head, I just turn Dan's volume down. So the more you name things, the more you can identify with something, just like our future self, right? Um, is is a whole lot easier to identify with and do things with, I suppose. Uh, that's what Downing Dan is all about.
So, what in your opinion is working harder all about? Being motivated by imposter syndrome. How does that play out for you?
Um, yeah, it is. Well, okay, so look at when I did Atlas. Remember, you were at the cusp of Atlas at its inception. at its idea.
Yeah.
And the doubters were like, that's not going to work. You're crazy to do it that way, whatever. And I said, screw all of you. Here's what I'm going to do. And that's what I mean by working harder. I worked my butt off to prove the naysayers wrong, including myself, including the
Right.
doubting dad. So I worked hard to make sure that it worked. And that's what I mean is I think it's more about just the passion, because that's what you're really trying to do. You're trying to prove someone something wrong. Like, let's be real, that's what it is.
Well, and Joey, I'm going to come in here with the whole concept of beta,
Yeah.
because when you first did it, and you've always kept the whole beta concept of putting it out there and just getting it out. And I think from the imposter syndrome whole psychology, if you had to be perfect, and that's the beauty of Atlas, is you're not having to be perfect. You're getting it out there and doing it with people live in beta. I think that probably is also helping with imposter syndrome, because I don't have to. Perfectionism is part of it as well. Well, I can't do it yet because it's all not perfect. All the slides aren't perfect, and the stack isn't perfect, and and all of that. That is a big piece of imposter syndrome too, I believe. Go.
Yeah, and you know what you hit today was no, yesterday I started my second, not my second, yeah, my second cohort for the year in Atlas. But the difference is that it's parallel now. So I've got two of them running at the same time. This is the first time I've done this, okay? And imposter syndrome started to it didn't really it wasn't really imposter syndrome, but man, I'm telling you in the last 2 days how many things messed up and broke, and I'm like, "Oh, dang it." Right? And it's only because of what you just said that I'm so okay with not being perfect. I'm so okay with like, well, that totally screwed up. And because the I believe that being the guinea pig for my clients, for the Atlas clients, is more of here's what I did that went wrong, or here's how I'd fix this, or here's how you can what you can look forward to, as opposed to what could go wrong, and here's how to fix it quickly. So it was not really imposter syndrome, but I credit that to having imposter syndrome first by saying, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. Now I know because I'm confident that I'm good enough to do it.
Right.
But I don't, I can't, I would not. So I guess, I don't know, Scott, could you call it really imposter syndrome that if I said, like if somebody said, are you good enough to run two cohorts side by side or back to back or parallel with each other? And I said, yeah, I am, or maybe I'm not. Is that imposter syndrome? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if you said I'm not good enough, then that's imposter syndrome, because there's the doubting Dan saying you're not good enough. And I remember when you started talking about doing two parallel, and I mean, the imposter says you're, you can't do it. And I think a piece of imposter syndrome also is the unknown, is we
Yeah.
don't know. It's like, okay, I've never done two. Da, da, da. I've never done this. I've never. So can I? And then that's like, instead of, well, I've never done it, but I've never done a lot of things in the past that I figured out how to do. Therefore, this one I'll figure out how to do and do the same thing. So I think
Yeah.
there is a little bit involved.
Yeah, I think if there was there, it was a very short period of time, maybe even
Yeah.
within seconds, that there was the imposter syndrome.
Yep.
But because
Yep.
of the capability, we'll talk. Let me reference Dan Sullivan here, which is like the four C's of like getting to any progress, which is clarity, commitment, capability, and confidence. Because everybody says I need confidence to do the thing, but they're missing the first three. They think that they can jump right to confidence, and like once I get the confidence, then I'm okay. But if you don't have clarity on what you want to do in order to make the commitment to do the thing, which and then if you do that, you have those two. Like I'm gonna do two atlases parallel. Here's the commitment. I'm doing it. No, I'm setting the date. Here's where it is. I'm taking payments, and then the capacity, or what did I say? Yeah, capacity to do it. Uh,
Capable.
yeah, you're being capable of doing it. The capability is learning it now. Is like, okay, well, that screwed up. Let me find out. And then like the next time I run parallels, it'll be, oh, I got this. It's all good. Here's how I do this, right? So I'm in the capability part right now. I'm still confident that it'll all run, but 100% confident that nothing will go wrong? No, I couldn't say that. But I'm in the capability piece. Here's what I'm learning. I'm learning how to do this. Um, so then, so I was able to turn that down like right away. Say, Dan, you don't know what you're talking about, man. I'm good because I'm gonna go into this and I'm gonna commit to this and I'm gonna learn how to do this. So you can shut up right now. I don't need to hear you right
But you're talking to me. I'm like, okay, Joey, I'll shut up. I didn't
now.
know I was saying anything.
By the way, I think that if you click on, there should be something in, depending on where you're watching this, to give, or did I give, you know what I didn't do? Invite group members. This is what I didn't do. Oh, dang it. Add to post description. Okay, so I keep forgetting to do this. I just clicked on invite group members and hopefully, let me just see here. Copy link
So
to clipboard.
it's either Meadow or it's Jeffrey. So those are. I've got the chat up now.
Yeah, so this
And
is, I apologize, my friends. It's my fault that I can't see you because I didn't put the right description in the comments or in the description itself. I just updated it. I'm hoping that will work. And if you click it, you're just giving Ecamm permission to see your names. If it doesn't work, it's my fault. Okay, so let's see here. There's a reason from the human design point of view. Some people, because this has to be metal, right? Some people struggle with imposter syndrome, for sure, 100%. Do you suffer with? I shouldn't say suffer. Do you come in contact with imposter syndrome, Meadow? I'd like to know that. Yes. Okay, so this is Meadow. We need to do your reading. I can't wait to get the human design reading. I can't wait. You don't have a traditional imposter syndrome at all. Cool. I'd love to know more about that. You have something else as a projector. You are mastering it. This is why I'm so fascinated by what you do, Meadow. I know this is you. I'm so fascinated by this because, yeah, I just want to learn more about what you see and what the projector is and what I'm mastering. That's my ego talking. Let's see here. Scott, I'll let you read this one because it's really long.
okay, thanks, Joey. I like the 95-5 rule. 90% of the world's population doesn't care what you're doing because they're into their own life problems. 5% will always criticize what we do because they are haters and want everyone to fail to make themselves feel better. The last 5% will want to see you improve, succeed, be involved, and will love what because they love to see others grow and help them and others and recognize we are all in this together, and it raises the quality of life for all of us. For some reason we listen to the 5% haters, not the 5% that want to see us grow. Thank you, Meadow. It's let's do it. Good work, Scott. You make it easy, Meadow, by giving us this incredible content to share.
Yeah, and by the way, Meadow, I know that you're in Atlas now, and we're focused on the 5%. So you're gonna love everything that you're gonna learn in there, because we totally ignore the 5% for sure. So that's fantastic. I love that.
And yeah, that's incredible, Joey, because
Woo!
all of my conversations,
It
yay,
worked.
Meadow,
It worked.
uh, all of my conversations, Joey, around this are
Oh, that
what
was
we're
Jeff.
now.
Okay, that was Jeff that we were talking about. Okay, so Jeff, yeah. Well, he's in Atlas too. So, dude, you're
Yeah,
gonna love it. You're gonna only focused on that 5%.
if it's and again, it's probably less than that, Joey, 5%, but still, regardless, it's that tiny percentage, and it goes back to dream clients is when and I believe too, Joey, is that the more we engage with dream clients, the less the imposter gets to show up because around dream clients, we so become ourselves and we go so deep into our zog, our zone of genius, that imposter's not going to really show up. When I would be on the platform all the time in front of audiences and big companies and clients, and like, holy crap, what am I doing here in front of these companies? But after a while, like you said, it was like, yeah, okay, so company X just hired me to come speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I do. Instead of, really? You're one of the biggest companies on the planet and you want me? So, um, good
Yeah.
conversations going on here, but
Yeah.
definitely Atlas. And again, today somebody was talking to me, and, go take it, Joey. I
Oh
was
no, no.
going.
I was letting you finish.
No, I was about to go somewhere else, so I'm staying on track for the first time maybe in
Okay,
3 years.
cool.
Oh,
I wanted to. I don't know if you know this or not. I wouldn't know this. I'm not because I got the note in front of me. But do you know who coined actually the imposter syndrome? And the hint is
no, I do not.
1978.
No, who did?
Pauline Clance and Susan Imes, or Eames, if you want, however you want to pronounce that. So, imposter syndrome was coined by Pauline Clance and Susan Eames in 1978. And it's basically, I'm sure you all know what it means, but it is that noise in your head that reminds us that we have no business to raise our hands, to jump in the water, to get on stage, or anything else. It's just that my doubting Dan voice. That's what it is. That's what imposter syndrome is. So I want to read a couple notes here. Uh, they say, and I forget where this is from. Let me tell you where it is from. It's from the practice, actually. Uh, okay, so research estimates that 40% of workforce has a job that requires innovation, human interaction, and decision making. And for each of these people, every day exposes them to the feeling of being a fraud. There's no manual, no proven best practices, and no established rule book for this. The very nature of innovation is to act as if. To act as if you are onto something. I totally identify with this. That's how Atlas started, as if it's going to work. Again, same thing. I was like, nope, this is going to work. And as if you have a right to be here. Same thing. I felt that all the way through, even though some of there was actually, I think, more outside noise than there was inside noise for me about it. But, along the way, you discover what doesn't work. And this is still where I am 3 years later. I'm still figuring out what doesn't work and on my way to finding out what does. And as long, I think that everyone listening to this, if you buy into that one thing, the fact that you're A, supposed to be doing it, and B, you're on the way to figuring out what works and what doesn't, everything will be cool. What do you think, Scott?
I am totally in agreement, especially with the act as if it's gonna work. Totally and completely. And for me, I agree with you, and I've watched you do it with Atlas. Is let me try this at, let me do it a little bit different. My current philosophy that I'm helping clients with, and it's I keep playing with it and I keep putting it out there and say, let me tweak this a little bit. Maybe this isn't going to work as great as I thought it was, but I know that the whole piece is going to work, and it does. And the more I do it each time, each day with somebody else, it works better and more. Where in the beginning it was like, yeah, this is kind of a putting together a bunch of different ideas, the landing page opt-in formula and ensconce and onboarding, and just all of it morphing into what it's become, and then putting it out there, and it's saying it's going to work, and then getting it all of a sudden, it's like it does work. I
Mm-hmm.
know it works. I've done it before, but now in replicating it and frameworking it and templating it and processing it and systematizing it, you gotta make mistakes. Let's go to any of the books we've read. You got to go out there and do it the wrong way. Starbucks did it the wrong way to get started, to get to the other side of it. Right marketing copy, the Umba, the first time you did it, and then Atlas the first time you did it was to get it out there. And I fully agree that, especially in our zone of genius, where the imposter, I think, lurks quite often, is that we act as if it's going to work, again, if we go with law of attraction, if we go with Akashic records, if we go with mindset, if we go with law of attraction, any of that, that's where it starts. Vision boarding, seeing things, and that's a big part of it, especially as we do what we're doing and build a cohort that isn't totally flushed out, but we go out there and do it because we know it's going to work.
Well, we
That's
believe it's going to work. I mean, that's the key. It's not, we don't know it's going to work. We act as if it's going to work. I think it's different than knowing because sometimes it
agreed.
doesn't, but we believe it. And this is a big thing. And you heard me talk about this a billion times, that I believe that belief is the number one only foundation of any success, period. It all comes down to belief. Whether you believe in you, yourself, with the thing, the passion, all that stuff, all comes back to belief. And that's what acting as if means. Because if you don't believe, in my opinion, about yourself or the thing that you want to create, even though you don't know it's going to work, but you believe it, you can't, and you don't believe it, you can't act as if. Because there's going to be a lot of things that crash and burn. And if you're not passionate enough to believe that, no, there is a way to do this, I just haven't found it yet, you're going to stop. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Stephen Covey was Jeffrey Harris's professor, and that's where he learned the 95-5 rule. I'm so envious of you, my friend. That's got to be crazy to
That
be
that's a
able to.
that's got to be an interesting, unique experience on his superpower matrix. I'd be curious to hear more about that.
Yeah, I think
That's
Jeffrey and
cool.
I are going to have a lot of great discussion. I think even the whole new crew in the Atlas cohort, this March one, it's great people, and I can only imagine the conversations that are going to come from it. So I'll share them with you as we go through this. The inner bitty shitty committee, I tell them I am not having a holding or a meeting, so please go now. That's cool. Is that Jeffrey as well?
I don't know because it didn't come in the comments in wherever we are, live stream yard duck someplace, so whatever.
Stream duck.
Stream duck live online Zoom.
Thank you,
Love and
Meadow.
soul hugs here. And Meadow says, I can't wait to learn how to atlasize my mastermind. Meadow, your world is about to be rocked in a way you cannot imagine. It just beyond imagination what you're going to do with Atlas and your mastermind. It's a blow away experience for everybody that wants to do this the right way, stream business, stream life, learn it from a master, do it in the right time, with the right support, with the right community. Just all of the elements are just amazing. And again, everybody that's on knows that Joey and I go back years now. There's no financial relationship
Yeah,
or pitch fest. We don't pitch anything. I just went through Atlas and invested in it and spent. It was incredible,
thank you.
and it's what as I engage with people, it's just become a part of, and it becomes a part of you. It's not a thing. It's just a way of being and living and doing business and mindset that rocks your world and changes
Dude,
it
it's
for
it's
anybody.
kind of like, thank you, Scott. It's kind of like you were eavesdropping on today's Academy call, because, dude, that's exactly what I said to them today, introducing it and saying, "Listen, here's the next one. Here's what it's about." And I said, it's not a program, even if it is kind of a program, but a marketing thing. But it's more of a way of life. It's more of a way of life doing business in the way it is, and it's kind of like you were eavesdropping on the call today, because that's
Well,
exactly
I'm
what I
always
said.
eavesdropping, but it is Joey, and it is a way of life, and I'm going to keep it tied to imposter syndrome because when you learn truly how to have a dream life with a dream business with dream clients, then you wake up like amazed that
Yeah,
this is cool. I'm having fun and I'm doing this thing that I'm getting so good at. And going back to the outliers, I'm sure that you read that book and you look at the 10,000 hour rule and look at everybody in there. When they first started, they were like, I don't know what I'm doing. Who am I to be doing this? And then now it's like, you want me, yeah, in my sleep. And so it's just, yeah, I like that it is. It's a way of life when you save people's lives.
Yeah.
And that truly helps imposter syndrome. I believe, here you go, Joey. You ready? I believe the solution to imposter syndrome is simple. It's called Atlas.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Well, what would happen if you got so good at what you did? You got so good at delivering it. You got so good in a life that was amazing, and you were serving at the highest level. It's tough for the imposter to live there,
Yeah, that's true.
pushing the limits. But by then, you're in such a place with such cool people inviting you on their podcast that it doesn't make a difference. Go. How
I
about we
want
go to number two, Joey?
well, I want to jump around. I want to bring a couple more points in here because I have some notes from all over the place here, and to get your thoughts on it. And again, I'd love to hear from everyone here in the group. So let's see here, David. This is from Think Again as well. But David Dunning and Justin Kruger published what's now known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. I thought this was really interesting. It's when we lack competence that we're most likely to be brimming with overconfidence. I'm going to repeat this. It's when we lack competence that we're most likely to be brimming with overconfidence. So I'll give you an example that they wrote here. In a group of football fans, the one who knows the least is most likely to be the armchair quarterback, prosecuting the coach and calling all the wrong plays and preaching out to a better playbook. So they're the least competent about the thing, but they think they know everything about it. Um, and the tendency matters because it compromises self awareness and it trips us up across all kinds of settings. So if you think you know more about history or science than most people, chances are you know less than what you think. And I thought like that was a wake up call for me. It was like, hold on a minute. Um, do I really know about this? And that's where imposter syndrome really kicks in because the Dunning effect is the first rule of the Dunning Kruger club is that you don't know you're a member of the Dunning Kruger club, which means that if you think you know more about history or more about dream clients or than anybody else, chances are you know less than you think. And that's where the learning piece comes in. That's where the learning piece, if you recognize that, and I guess that's part of ego too, at least it is for me, going, you can't tell me anything I don't I don't know about dream clients, right? That's my ego speaking. And then I'm in the Dunning Kruger club, which is, well, you probably don't know as much as you think you know. Which,
Mm-hmm.
if you can pull yourself out and zoom out and look at yourself from 30,000 feet out and say, dude, you don't know as much as you think you know, and you can recognize that, and you go back into your body and you say, okay, well, I'm going to go learn even more. So I'll leave it there. What are your thoughts?
I'm in agreement with that. You hear me joke often. I don't know anything about anything, but I know everybody that knows a lot of cool stuff, and I can find out. And then I'll go to the Henry Ford parable or lore that he was in a courtroom and the plaintiff accused him of being an idiot, and he said it's probably true, but that telephone over there, I can call anybody on the planet and get the answer I need fast. And I don't. I am very good at a lot of different things. I have my zone of genius. I'm a great copywriter. I'm a great funnel architect and a great consultant and strategist and all of that. But I still learn every day about writing copy, and I don't know everything there is to know about anything, even what I'm really good at. I only know what's in my limited field, and that is finite. Whereas the limitlessness of what potentially is available out there is mind boggling. So, for me at least, to think that I know more than anybody, no. More than some, yes. Everything, no. Uh, I believe that the day you stop learning is the day you stop living and the day you start dying. And I don't ever want to stop learning. And that's one of the traits you heard me many times that I admire about you is your never-ending thirst for knowledge.
Thank you. I'll piggyback on that with what they say as well here. about imposter syndrome. They say first of all, imposter syndrome is a good thing. We've talked about that before because it's fuel to do more. They also say this, which is I love this: great thinkers don't harbor their doubts because they're imposters. They maintain their doubts because they know that we're partially blind and they're committed to improving their sight. So they don't boast about how much they know, they marvel at how little they understand. I'll read that again. They don't boast about how much they know, they marvel about how little they understand, and they're aware that each answer raises new questions, and the quest for knowledge is never finished, which is what you were just talking about. And a mark of lifelong learners is recognizing that they can learn something from everyone they meet. And this is something that's really important for anybody to hear, especially if you're doing cohorts and betas and learning. And I just had another discussion today with a couple of people on a clarity call. Basically, they asked me, "What's the first steps? What do I do? How does it all work?" Type of thing. And it's really hard to condense, the whole thing down into a 20-minute call. But it's like, you know what? I think the biggest thing is, aside from build the tribe first, serve, don't sell, and respect their timeline, is your thing is on building the tribe first. And what that really means is is getting on a calls with people individually and listening. Like just listen to 25, 50 people, 100 people. Just go in with the intention of listening. And this is what it's right here. Lifelong learners are recognizing that they can learn from someone that everyone meets. So not only did I say that, I go, that's the first step I would do if I was going to talk to past 3-year Joey, do this first. And then the second thing is I always look forward to every single call, Atlas Academy, whatever it is, whatever coaching thing I'm going into, in the way of like I'm gonna go learn something, not that I'm gonna go teach something, and that's there, but it's like what can I teach today so that I could learn from them, and I don't want it to sound like I'm being selfish, but I'm always open minded to this is how what my perspective is, and I'm open minded to another person's perspective or input or insight or feedback or anything. And I think that's what helps you up level your program.
As you were saying that, Joey, a thought came, and it was about the four pieces from Dan Sullivan. And I basically wrote clarity defeats imposter syndrome. I think that the more, and it was interesting because today I was on a coaching call, and one of the duo, she said, I finally know what we do. And it kind of made sense that for years they've been out selling stuff and programs and challenges and that, and they didn't really know what they did. And after spending time and actually 2 hours to write a sales letter, taking all of their words, their copy, and creating their own language that was theirs to begin with, they saw it in a way that said, huh, now I know what we do, and now I'm excited and I feel confident in what we do. So I just, those four: clarity, commitment, capable, and confidence. And jumping into the Atlas piece, you talked about beliefs and the whole importance of the chain of beliefs. And just for
Yes.
anybody, is they have to have a belief somewhere. And again, when you get that nailed down, I believe it just helps to calm that voice the more and the deeper you get into it. Go take a thing on how to run Facebook ads and do a funnel in that. I think the imposter syndrome's always going to be there because you have no clue what you're doing. Even if you think you know what you're doing, everything changes. But when you truly have a way of life that becomes more intense and more powerful,
Yeah.
that's a game changer. Go.
Wayne
Shall I?
Dyer said, "We all start with believing first into someone else we trust, knowing our abilities. That works into with a great deal of mistakes in the process into our own knowing and mastery in servicing others." That's Jeff. Yeah, thank you for that. That's right.
Yeah.
And who
Yeah.
would argue with Wayne, right? So, Meadow, that's for another discussion outside of this call, but we can talk about that inside Atlas for sure. I'll let you know how to get people onto calls. Um, I want to start doing more calls. Okay, yeah, we'll get you there. And some love for you. That's why you do what you do with excellence, Scott. Love and soul hugs. That's
Thank
why.
you, Colin. That's why I come here on Tuesday nights to get my love and soul hug quota for the week.
The chain of beliefs is still confusing to me, but I know it'll make sense soon. It's always, I shouldn't say always, but for most people, it is a little confusing at the beginning. It definitely was for me too. And I think that the easiest way to explain the chain of beliefs, whether we won't get into the discussion about it because you and I can go deep into this, Scott, but it's really it's the repetitive things that you talk about out in the public to try to convince them to buy from you. But we're not trying to convince them. We're trying to tap into their true belief of themselves that they believe they'll move forward to buying from me. So the old way, or I guess it's not the old way. There's still people who do that. They try to manipulate and convince and persuade and influence and all these trickery things to try to get people to think, well, okay, yeah, I'm going to buy this. Whereas it's a whole lot, I wouldn't say easier, but it's better and simpler. And it is easier to make the sale once you know how to identify and tap into someone's true desire and change their belief about something. It's not trickery, it's not manipulation, but it's more of you believe this, and here's another perspective of looking at this, or here's something that maybe you're not aware of, and it taps into their desire to do something, which is the oasis and all these other things. So realistically, Meadow, and anybody listening to it's the couple of things that you're always talking about, and you always find yourself trying to tell people, but yeah, but this, and you're not doing it now on a sales call trying to convince somebody in 10 minutes. You're doing it in prefluence all over the world consistently, and letting them decide on their own outside of like whether you don't see them changing their beliefs, right, Scott? Would you agree with that?
Totally and completely, because as we know, you really can't change beliefs. You just have to ignite their desire.
Well, you can no, you can change the belief tapping into the desire.
That's what I meant. I misspoke. Is you can't create desire in someone. It's got to kind of be
Right,
there, and you have
right,
to elicit that. But you can change their beliefs. And Meadow, when I first, way back when Joey first introduced Chain of Beliefs, and I first heard it, and I watched it, and I went through it. I had no clue what it was, and then we did it again on one of the shows, and I still didn't really understand it. And then when I went through Atlas, and I actually did it, and then I went through it about 8 more times. It's been like 12 times that I've done it with mine, with others. It's finally making sense. You're in the right place. It is not, it's not like, well, okay, I can go figure out how to do ABC and I'm done. Even up to now, Joey, you and I go back to it and go deeper into, okay, well, the first 3 parts of it, we've got to connect with them on an empathetic level and an emotional level. And I'm like, okay, that changed that a little bit more and
right.
deeper and deeper. So there you go.
Yeah, it's definitely something that a lot of people don't tap into, and that's why I love coaching Atlas, because we talk about things that hardly anybody talks about, and piecing it all together creates the simplistic heart-centered marketing that everybody wants without all the pushiness and all that stuff. But you still have to do the work. It's not a push button system. It's not, like there's a lot of deep work, and most people avoid that. And that's the reason why I believe a lot of people struggle. But the ones who put in the work and do that work, the deep work, 12 times in the chain of beliefs, like, dude, now you know what people need to believe, and that's all you talk about. That's what makes it everything now that you do. I would assume, unless I'm wrong, that that's what you're talking about in the public now. Is like, if
Yeah.
people need to believe all this stuff in order to buy from me, why would you talk about anything else? It
There's no, there is, that's all I talk about now. And that's all, you're absolutely right. And that's what it comes down to once you figure out, it's real easy. You just learn who your dream client is to build a
right,
dream business. And then You get a dream statement, you get the chain of beliefs done, and then you get your message navigated going to your invitation blueprint. Then you get people on calls and you do your cohort. It's real simple, right? Well, okay, let's take each one of those things apart. And just your message navigator alone. I remember when I first you kind of I hadn't gone through Atlas yet, and you just said, "Okay, Scott, use the message navigator thingy." And I'm like, "What is it?" You gave me yours, and we got off the call and then I totally screwed it up the first time because I didn't know what I was doing. And then I did it again, and I did it again, and I just kept doing it. And after a while, like anything else, it just
Right.
became so simple. But it took a while just for that one little piece, and that little piece connected to all the other pieces. So I couldn't just say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna have conversations with people to get them on calls. No, it had to be that whole put in the work and then implement it. Speed of implementation, and
Yeah.
that's
And that's
go.
the thing. So if you and bringing that up, like I mean, just like that one piece, if you gave it just to somebody and said, "Here's how you have a conversation," they're gonna screw it up because there's all these other deeper pieces. Because now I would imagine that, at least for me, the way it is when I'm using the tool or something, it's more of my chain of beliefs is always in my head. It's always I'm having a navigator conversation, but I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, they need to believe this thing, and they need to go in this route, and um, they're if they don't, there's no reason for me to continue the conversation. I was
right.
having a conversation today because I did the Kajabi um, masterclass last Friday, and I had a call from somebody who wanted to just talk to me today, and on that call, they said they're new to this world first of all, so I'm like, so what's on your mind, like where are we, what can I answer for you? And they were just, I just want to know the right thing to do, like, so that's a huge huge question. What's the right thing to do? And I'm like, well, you're going to get opinionated knowledge and experience from me, just as you're probably getting from 100 other places too. So, and that's when we got into the whole three pillars, but the point is that she validated for me the chain of beliefs because she was talking about, people are telling me to do this and that and the funnels and this and this doesn't align me. And then I went on the call with you, and you completely opened my eyes and you were talking my language. And that is what I'm talking about when it comes to chain of beliefs. Like, I wasn't there to, you know, intentionally change that person's belief, but I did just by me talking about what is true to me and what I believe, and the differences between dream clients and ideal client avatars and unfunneling as opposed to all that stuff. And this person just said, "You blew my mind," and it just opened my eyes. And that, Meadow, and anybody else listening, is what chain of beliefs does. That's what I'm talking about. Is you know what people need to believe, and you only talk about that because you believe it too. And the right dream clients will attract to you. Whether they buy right then and there or not, does it's not the question. It's, does this person believe what I believe in order for me to help them? Right?
That's a huge piece right there, Joey. Does that person believe what you believe so that you can help them?
Yeah.
And that I'm going to tie it right back into imposter syndrome
Right.
because you know what you know. When you share it and people believe what you believe in, that validates it. And the more you do it with dream clients, the more it gets validated. So, dream clients and chain of beliefs and all of that ties into imposter syndrome. How to Battle Imposter Syndrome by Joey Ragona.
One of the Thank you, Meadow. So now it's becoming a little bit more straightforward for you. It is a linear method for sure, but it won't come to you. You're probably smarter than me. It didn't come to me all at once. Like, I had to like move things around and put it in together. So don't, if it does get a little frustrating on like what goes next, what goes next, it's a process that builds over time when you start getting when you start listening, which is kind of what I want to talk about. Back to the imposter syndrome too, is where when you are working harder to prove yourself or to get the thing out or to have a great cohort or great program or something like that, you're always looking for ways. Um, Again, you have nothing to lose, but you're working hard to listen to the audience more to figure out what they need to buy from you. That's And if your imposter syndrome is saying to you, you're not good enough, and you have the passion to serve, you're like, okay, maybe I'm not good enough right now, but I'm going to make myself good enough. So I'm going to go out and listen to the audience because these are my peeps. These are my dream clients, and they know what the answer is. That's at least how I approach it, Scott. So,
And it makes sense. The more you're out there listening to your dream clients, the easier it becomes.
and here's another thought is that if you think that you don't know, like let's say that you're focused, right? You're in your lane for whatever it is, and that's all you do is you only focus on this thing, and you still think you're an imposter, because I don't think that's ever going to go away. But you think you're an imposter. Here's the upside of this is that even though you're studying one thing, like I talk only dream clients and niches, and that's it. Like that's kind of my thing, right? That's it. And if I think that like, there's still other people who know way more than me, I still know more than everybody else who's not focused on the topic, right?
That's important. Yeah. You know more than anybody else that's not focused on the topic. That's key, but you don't know more than others that maybe have been doing it a lot longer or in a different way or using a different methodology or path or technique that hey, you and I are students of copy no matter what. And what the next book or the next court, we're going to get it because that's what we love doing.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah, and
Jeffrey,
for
I
anybody
think
listening, is that's like the biggest thing is you may have mentors or people ahead of you in the game that you are comparing yourself to, and being an imposter, thinking you're an imposter because they're better. But think about the other avenue where the 95-5 rule comes in, where you there's only 5% of people who know more than you, and 90% of the people have no clue whatsoever. And even of those people, even the 5% of the naysayers are thinking that they don't know as much as you do because they're not focused on it. Like they'll talk about the thing, but because that's not their main thing, it's like you don't really know what you're talking about here. So, yeah, we go to Jeffrey here.
what I like so far, as I'm just getting into Atlas, is Joey is teaching us that we are getting away or undoing from the convincing thing or working from the outside in to redo and work from what is really important to us first and work out from there. We eliminate convincing to knowing we can help others. Just a thought. That's an incredible thought because you have summed up it is not a coercion, convincing thing. It's a serving thing. Build a tribe, serve them, and respect their timeline. And it's brilliant what you said because that is what Joey teaches is
Thank you.
doing it different from the whack-a-mole thing that
Well, I love
every
that analogy, the whack a mole. It's such a bang, bang,
because it's so perfect because anybody can look at it and go, oh, they popped up there, whack.
bang.
Oh, they popped up on Facebook, whack. There I go, whack. Email, whack.
Yeah. Oh man, I think I said this before, Scott, but I remember being in masterminds a couple years ago, and the whole thought was the premise was it was about email. So it was like you sell them every day hard until they buy or
Yeah.
opt out.
Or get off your list.
That was
Exactly.
it. That was I thought I was missing something,
Yep.
and every call thingy, whatever you want to call, was like, okay, what's the strategy? Strategy is hit them every day with a sale until they buy or they get off your list. Next, what's the strategy? Hit them every day until you get. I'm like, wow, okay. how am I going to hit him every day? And some of the strategy was, well, did you know that every day is a holiday, like some holiday? No. Well, then you can look it up, and every day is a holiday, and you can,
Chase's Red Book of Promotions will tell you every
yeah,
day is National Hot Dog Day, it's National
right.
Book
It's a
Day,
hot dog.
Secretary Day,
So you,
Lamp Day, Cesspool Day. It doesn't matter. So you can send out every day a brand new offering to celebrate National Tile Floor Day in so and so.
yep,
Every
as an
single
excuse. That's the reason.
Exactly. I wanted to celebrate today. It's near and dear to my heart. The International Association of Water Cooler People. And in celebration of that, we're cooling our prices on everything. So
One
you get
100%. I'm like, okay, that gives us the right to sell every single day. And I'm like, wow, man. So anyway, that was the world that I was was part of, and you can see why my head and heart were fighting a lot throughout that time.
yeah.
Like, I don't know, okay. So anyway,
Anyway, so imposter syndrome. Do you have it? Do you know what it is? How do you get away from imposter syndrome? What's the cure? What's the solution? Atlas. Cure for
uh,
imposter syndrome.
thanks for this. Thanks for the sale. That's amazing, Scott.
Take, take, take carefully and consult a doctor before you begin Atlas, or definitely a psychiatrist and psychologist. And Meadow says, for 2 years, every time I would go live, I wove my offer pitch into the talk. I completely stopped doing that. It was so draining. Meadow, good for you. Congratulations, join the club. A lot of people know that that was my life. Every other week, I did another launch, I did a pitch, I did a webinar, and it was exhausting having to just constantly. And yeah, convincing people to see the value when you do it the Atlas way, they come and seek you out and find you out.
Yeah,
It's
you never
it's
convince.
it's
I
it
I
yeah.
I want to give Meadow like a big congratulations and applause because admitting this kind of stuff, especially on the interwebs like this, is
Yeah.
huge. And I want to congratulate you. I
Yeah.
want to focus on you, and I want to applaud you because it's not easy to admit that. And so yeah, just applause,
Yeah.
respect.
And duplicate applause. That's just to be that vulnerable, transparent, and open to that, and admitting it and changing it. It's huge, and it just God, life becomes enjoyable, and you don't have to. What am I going to do, and who am I going to try and sell, and what am I going to try and pitch, and what offer, and what funnel, and what thing, and what that, and it's like, what story do I want to tell today to help provide some value to my tribe?
And Meadow, you don't have to answer this, but I'm curious to know, and there's no right answer either. If you felt imposter syndrome while you were doing that, trying to convince people, and you don't have to answer, just ignore it. But I'd love to know if you did or you didn't. So she
Joey,
seems to say
where does feeling like a sleaze bag come into play?
feeling like a sleaze bag. Just open up a whole new can of worms.
Which is different than being a scumbag, obviously. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
I don't know. I've felt that one time, like it probably happened more in my life, but I can recall the day that it happened to me, that I felt like a sleaze bag, and it was during the time of me trying to follow everyone else's path. And I think I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again because it's important, and I'll try to keep it without putting people under the bus or anything. But I was doing a presentation, and uh, I would do my presentation my own way, like and I would still have like a sale at the end, like okay, I'm going to offer something, and it really wasn't working because I was never really great at it in the first place. And so I'm like, all right, I've got to get better at this. So I followed something else, another way of presenting, and then when I got to the pitch area, it was it was very uncomfortable because first of all there was a lot more in it, you know, a lot more things to do, if you know what I'm talking about, if you're reading between the lines. And so I did that, slide after slide after slide after slide after slide, and I'm not done yet, but wait a minute, like all those type of things. And I could literally feel the energy of the crowd because, first of all, it was a small room of maybe 25, 30 people that I would speak to every single month. And I was I was already nervous, and I could feel the energy of myself just, or the whatever you want to call it, just drop. That I was nervous. The crowd, I could feel the energy going, whoa, and literally two people walked out of the room when I got to that point, which never happened before. And but I kept going, and I felt really sleazy. So I finished it. Nothing happened, and then the owners, or they were actually my clients anyway, but I would present to their tribe. They came up to me at the end and said, "Whatever you did today, don't ever do it again. Like I don't know what you did, but don't ever do it again." And I said, "No, no problem there," because and I just Scott, it was the worst feeling ever, and it was
Yeah.
because I was looking at other people and they were doing the thing. I'm like, well, I must be missing something here, and that's when I felt really sleazy.
Yep. Yep. I hear you, and thank you for that vulnerability, Joey. It's just, yeah, and I brought it up because I remember a few years back, it was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and I put this whole presentation together with the whole slide deck and the whole thing and everything. And it took me, months to put it all together. And then I went and did it, and I did the practice run. And when I finished the stack, it just didn't feel right. It was like, this doesn't feel right anymore. I can't do this. But again, it was following what had been learned and taught. And who knew any different?
Yeah, that guy. That's kind of what I was alluding to, is like doing the whole
Yeah.
stack thingy,
Yep. Yep.
and I remember going. I don't know how many of them I had, man. Like I had a lot. There was like if there was 10, there was 15 of them. Like I'm talking like at slide after slide, and I was just 3, 4 in. I'm like, God, is this ever gonna end? Like, because I couldn't just skip the dang things.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, is this ever gonna end? And it got worse and worse and worse, um, because I just it wasn't who I was. And the people getting up and leaving didn't really bother me. That was like, but it was noticeable because obviously they're right there. That wasn't what was bothering me. It was more of like, oh my God, like this just is not who I am. And I'll talk. Let me actually add on another piece to this, which is an opposite thing, where so there's some comments here that I just want to go through. So this is whoever wrote this is these are brilliant. Like those who know demonstrate. This one here. Those who don't know convince. Whoever that is, it's brilliant. And Meadow said she never felt imposter syndrome because I'm confident in what I do. Okay, cool. That's what I was looking for. And but I felt frustrated that they didn't understand the value. That's where the chain of beliefs is going to help you for sure. And I felt more undervalued than imposter syndrome. I love your vulnerability and thank you for your honesty.
Amazing. Incredible.
I'm going to come to yours, Rosa, in a second. Here's another story, and I've said this before a few times, but I'll resurface this, where I was doing another presentation, and I said, okay, I'm going to do the opposite of everybody else, and I'm going to say at the beginning, I've got something to sell you. At the end, so stay tuned for that. And if you don't want to listen to it, by the way, when I get to there, I'll let you know, and then you can get up and leave if you don't want to listen to anything. So it's totally cool. So first of all, I did that and said, whatever. So anyway, I did the presentation and my time was out. Like it was just done. And it was like, okay, guys, I told you I was going to, offer you something, but I don't have any time left. So I apologize. Don't worry about it. You didn't miss anything anyway, because I told you I was going to, teach you a whole bunch of really good stuff, whether you bought from me or not. And that's what it was. So thank you for your time. Amazing. See you later. And the room was packed. When I went to the back of the room, almost the whole room got up and said, "Dude, like, what what do you have? What did you say? What did you not tell us? And I'm like, huh, might be a strategy thing here. Like,
The non-selling
that's
strategy.
like,
I'm not going to sell.
yeah, it was, but it was so, it was just like, that's what happened. I ran out of time. I go, guys, I have no more time. Like, there's a couple slides here I can go through, but I got to get off the stage.
Yeah,
So
Joey,
anyway,
I think for me, growing up in the speaking world, and back then I was making a lot of money. I was traveling everywhere and I was going to everything.
yeah,
And back then, in the beginning days, as you know, everything was a pitch fest.
right,
You'd go to an all day event with 7 internet marketers, and every single one of them had their pitch. Or I'd go to the system and it would be, all of the names there, and they'd all have a pitch. And I learned the pitches and I spent tens of thousands on learning the pitches. But then I just like never felt, yeah, I always sold from the stage and it was my program. I never felt sleazy about it because it was a program that I knew would provide value. Did I try and convince sometimes? Yeah. Was I a little too salesy at times? Yeah. But that's how we learn. That's how you grow in this thing. Like when I first started, I had nothing for sale, and people like, got any tapes? I'm like, no. But after like a whole bunch of people, I was like, I think I better record some tapes. That was back in the days of cassette tapes, and then it was CDs, and then it was programs. It kept going. Anyway, we got a bunch of. Let's see. There's a few topics, comments here.
Rosa, I love how humble and honest you are. Thank you so much. Lorna, if you're just getting joining us now, this was a really great conversation. Uh,
Nothing, Lorna. Absolutely nothing. We, as usual, said nothing of value or worth because, after all, Joey and I are both imposters.
hashtag live, hashtag replay. Looks like hashtag replay for you, right, Lorna? Love you. Let's see here. This is, and I'll let you read this one, Scott, because I've been reading them all.
Okay, this is such an important topic, and I'm so grateful to you, Joey and Scott, and to Jeffrey and Meta for sharing. This is raw and real, and I love the vulnerability that we can be here with without being judged. Rather, we are supported. Love and soul hug. That's what this whole tribe has always been about, and Atlas and everything is being vulnerable and being open and honest and sharing our wins and our mess ups and our challenges and our struggles on combined Joey and I's, like, whatever it is, 70, 80 years of being in this world.
And Rosa says, or Meadow says, love the story. Thank you, Meadow. And we love you back. Thank you, Rosa. What a great way to end another broadcast. I can't believe it's already the top of the hour.
Yep, it's the top of the hour already, and we've gotten through one of the 3 things that we wanted to
Was
talk
there
about.
something that you wanted to talk about, like for the other
No,
two? Okay.
no, I just like to keep track of your 1, 2, and 3 because I play the home game, and I always want to make sure that if there's any questions that I know the answers because I wouldn't want to like look like an imposter. So therefore, no, I'm good, Joey. Excellent, excellent content as always. Imposter syndrome, such an important topic, especially for the online entrepreneur that has to face a lot of the challenges and monsters by themselves.
I want to thank you for that. But I'm going to bring this around one more time because I just looked at the 3 here, which is the feeling like an imposter can make us better learners. I do want to speak to this for a second because it has to do with this person I talked about at the beginning who I'm learning from, and yeah. Anyway, so I don't want to spoil it too much, but anyway, this is what I took from this is that when you have doubts about what you're doing and your knowledge and your skills, it actually takes you off your pedestal if you put yourself on a pedestal, because then you're looking to seek the knowledge from others. And so I want to speak to this because the 3 years ago, especially 3 years ago, my goal was to learn more about relationship building. Because I always thought I was an imposter. Like I can't build relationships. I don't know what I'm doing there. And I think I got really good at it. and I don't want to sound like I'm putting myself on a pedestal, because that's not where I think I am. Um, but I think I'm pretty good at it now. Like I'm pretty good at relationships and cultivating and all these things. But when I read this, and because like Joe Polish, right? He's a hero to me. His latest book, What's in It for Them. If you haven't gotten that, by the way, and you're listening to this, get it, because it is to me the Bible on how to build relationships, like amazing relationships. And so when I'm reading that, and that's what I'm talking about, is like, wait a minute, I don't know enough about relationships that I should know, and I want to learn more about this. So I'm not really looking at myself as an imposter, but it's in the zones, like it's there. So because of that, it makes me a better learner. It's like it makes me know I want to know more about how to do this, because if the people in Atlas that I'm teaching about relationships, like they're I don't want they're behind me a little bit. Like I'm a little ahead of them, and I can pull them forward and say, here's what I've learned about relationships. There's already somebody ahead of me. So I'm able to now, bring that through. So if I was just looking at that, then that's my pedestal, right? Like, okay, if anybody over here in Atlas or whatever, then I know more than they do about it. So you know what I mean? You might get that ego, or at least this, I'm just talking about me personally. And so to take it down a notch and like, wait a minute, I don't know enough. I might be an imposter about building relationships, because if somebody tells me you're good at it or whatever, then I'm like, no, I know I know people a whole lot better than I am about this. So I'm just an imposter. But then that's my doubting Dan. When he gets rid of that, I go, no, I may not know enough. I'm going to turn you down a little bit. I'm just going to go learn more about it. So that's what I wanted to make sure that we talked about, that learner piece, because it's super important.
Thank you for adding number three. And for those that didn't know what number two was, it was to work smarter. And you also mentioned think smarter, and that's what imposter syndrome does. Is it does help you work smarter and think smarter, so that you differentiate yourself, and
Okay,
that's what it.
so dude, you just brought up another one. So we're not leaving yet, because this is so important, right? So, uh, it is working smarter is really about questioning the assumptions of everybody else. So look at Atlas, right? This is the assumption of how to do a funnel or how to get people into the world and all this, and I'm like, no, and it puts you back into the beginner's mindset. So that's what I did. Is what if I don't know anything about building a list, creating a program? What do I do? Like, I'm totally new to this. What would I think? And questioning, why do you have to do it that way? Why do you need to run a funnel to 1,000 people and squeeze them down to the 10 that you actually need? Why do you have to do it that way? Why can't you start with the 10 first, right? It's going back to the beginner's mindset of questioning the assumptions that, well, no, this is how it's done. And this is how you get your perfect clients. Why? And so then it makes you think smarter. It makes you think, well, there's got to be another way then. That's what that's what the learning piece is about for me. What do
I
you think?
agree, and again, going back to think time. If you want to if you want to think smarter and work smarter, then you need to put time aside to do that. It goes
One hundred
back to
percent.
2 or 3 shows ago with breaking down what percentage of your week are you spending on what. So
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Meadow. Thank you, Lorna, Rosa, Cully, Jeffrey. Did I miss anybody? I apologize. I can't scroll all the way back up there, but I know if you're here, thank you so much live. And thank you, by the way, if you're here on the replay, just hit hashtag replay if you're here and hashtag live if you're here. Amazing. Rosa says, you both teach us to be authentic and are true to ourselves. Our dream clients value that and want to travel in the same path 100%. And this is Collie. If you can't teach it to a fifth grader in simple terms, you don't know what you're talking about. That's true too. There's so much brilliance in this. I just don't want to go, but I know we have to let you go. You've been here for 90 minutes with us. We appreciate you. Thank you for being here every single Tuesday for Marketing Made Easy. My friend Scott and I adore you. Thank you for being here. Any last thoughts, Scott?
No, I just again want to thank everybody for showing up. I'll go back 2, 3 years ago when we did the first show, and I think it was you and me and one person. And now every week we have those people come in, people follow, and it's just a joy to spend Tuesday evenings with the tribe and talk about what we love that we're passionate about, marketing.
Amazing. See you next Tuesday.